Hello, my fellow aviators. Welcome back to another hiring update video. This one for the fall of 2024. For those of you who haven't seen one of my hiring update videos, hopefully you're in for a video that you will really enjoy and find very informative. And for the 40-some thousand of you that watched the last one, welcome back. I hope you enjoy this one very much. So a couple of quick housekeeping things. First of all, this video is not intended to be the definitive answer to the current pilot hiring environment, much less the future. Instead, it is intended to help you, my beloved audience, to understand what's going on, as well as to stimulate discussion down in the comments section, because of course I don't have all of the answers. So if you're an industry insider and you can speak specifically about what you see happening in your own backyard, I would love very much to hear from you. All right, let's talk about the September numbers. September finished up with a total of 230 pilots hired. United, Delta, and UPS led the pack with 85, 69, and 36 pilots hired respectively. And it appears that 2024, while not necessarily a year for the history books, will end up being one of the better years for pilot hiring in the last 30 years. Now, before we dive into the outlook for 2025, let's talk about some important data points with respect to the demand for air travel. All right, let's first dive into the IATA Air Passenger Market Analysis. The most recent report available is August of 2024. So why I always start my videos with this, of course, is that air passenger demand has a huge impact on the health of the industry. So let's understand what that demand looks like. So air travel keeps growing with a record load factor in August. The industry total revenue passenger kilometer, the RPK, in August grew 8.6 year over year versus 6.5 year over year growth in available seat kilometers, otherwise known as ASK. The passenger load factor, PLF, reached a new record high of 86.2%, indicating strong demand for air travel. So yay, here's to strong demand for air travel. Domestic traffic for the industry grew 5.6% year over year. PR China led with 10.7% annual increase. Japan came second with 7.66 year over year, more than doubling July's growth rate. Industry international passenger traffic in August marked 10.6% year over year. Asia Pacific and Latin America regions experienced double-digit growth at 19.9% and 13.6%, while other regions grew between 4.3 and 10.1%. Air travel demand in the coming months displays signs of increased travel appetite vis-a-vis the previous year. Ticket sales for both international and domestic travel accelerated with an average expansion of 5.7%. So all that stuff is pretty good. Now let's dive a little bit deeper into some of the reports. So as we can see here in chart number 1, global RPK and ASK seasonally adjusted index from January 2020 equals 100. Commercial air passenger traffic for the industry measured in revenue passengers kilometers, or RPK for short, remained on its steady growth trend in August of 2024, accelerating from the previous month of 7.9% year over year to 8.6%. August 2024's RPK recorded 4.4% above levels achieved in January 2020 in seasonally adjusted terms. RPK rose by 0.4% month over month as the 5th consecutive month of positive month over month growth. International passenger traffic in August, the primary driver of industry-wide growth, grew by 10.6% year over year, adding 0.6 percentage points to July's year over year growth, as you can see in the chart on the screen. All regions' international markets achieved RPK year-over-year rates above 4.3%, with North America and the Middle East slightly decelerating compared to July. in line with their typical seasonal patterns. Airlines from the Asia-Pacific region continued to lead, achieving the highest growth of 19.9% year over year, followed by Latin America and Africa with 13.6% and 10.1% respectively. Compared with last year, trip bookings made between May and July for travel during August and September saw a 5.7% year-over-year increase in industry ticket sales. Despite the typical seasonal upcoming slowdown, commercial air traffic is expected to keep rising. The international segment led the growth with a 6.6% rise, while domestic sales followed at 4.3%. So as you can see, guys, there is no lack in demand for air travel. And if you would like to dive into this report and see all of the nitty-gritty, there will be a link down in the description where you can get access to the entire report. So then, let's address the elephant in the room. Why has hiring slowed in 2024? Well, there is a couple of reasons. Post-pandemic stabilization, economic factors, a recovery in the pilot training pipeline. So when there was a lot of demand, a lot of schools ramped up. But the biggest thing that has been affecting hiring here in North America in particular, and perhaps globally, is the problems with Airbus and Boeing. So as you may probably are aware, as of the recording of this video, Boeing is not in such good shape. Their previous, now gone, CEO was focused more on stock buybacks, and the CEO before him was also focused more on stock buybacks than they were on pumping out quality aircraft, and that introduced all sorts of problems. And now we have the Boeing machinists in Renton that build the 737 are on strike, and that is going to have a profound effect on Boeing's ability, or should I say inability, to deliver their aircraft. So as you can see here on the screen, we've got a significant drop from the winter of 2023. Aircraft deliveries at that point were somewhere in the order of about 150 to 160, and that has fallen off of a cliff. At the same time, Airbus is having their own issues with the Pratt & Whitney engines. Many of those aircraft have been taken offline because the engines have to be inspected, and of course there's a backlog for the inspections. And so all of that means that despite the fact that we have robust demand for air travel, we just simply don't have enough planes at the majors. And if the majors don't have enough planes, then they are not going to be hiring. That has a trickle-down effect, which then means that the regionals who were having their captains poached away to go to the majors are able to hold on to those captains, and so the regionals are not hiring nearly to the level that they were before. So let's dive a little bit into some of the details on that with the graphic that you can now see on your screen. You can see that Alaska Airlines pretty much hasn't hired anybody since January. Allegiant is still hiring. American Airlines hasn't hired anybody in the last 4 months. Atlas hasn't hired anyone in the last 2 months. Delta has been hiring steadily throughout the year. FedEx has not been hiring at all. Frontier has been a bit of hit and miss. Hawaiian Airlines, a bit of hit and miss. Let's go down to Southwest. You can see some months they're hiring, some months not. Spirit Airlines not hiring at all. UPS restarted hiring a couple of months ago. United, for the most part, has been hiring every single month. But if you look at these numbers, they are not nearly as strong as they were last year, what were but a tiny fraction of last year's hiring. And a lot of that has been due to the fact that Boeing has not been delivering planes, and of course Airbus has had their engine difficulties. So now let's dive into some financials for a couple of selected airlines. So Southwest's most recent earnings report showed that the third quarter 2024 operating revenues were a record $6.9 billion, which was a 5.3% increase year over year. Third quarter 2024 passenger revenues were a record of $6.3 billion, an increase of 5.7% year over year. And third quarter 2024 RASM increased 2.8% year over year within the company's previous guidance range. The company expects fourth quarter 2024 unit revenues to increase in the range of 3.5 to 5.5% on a year-over-year basis, with capacity down approximately 4%. Again, capacity down, meaning we don't have enough airplanes to put in the air. For American Airlines, they recorded a record third quarter revenue of $13.6 billion, the third quarter net loss of $149 million or 23 cents per share, excluding net special items. Third quarter net income of $205 million or 30 cents per diluted share. Led the U.S. network carriers in third quarter completion factor and ended the third quarter with $11.8 billion of total available liquidity, on track to reduce debt from a peak level of $15 billion by the year end of 2025, and full year adjusted earnings per diluted share expected to be between $1.35 and $1.60. Now let's talk about the outlook, because that's what everybody wants to know about. So what is all the things that I've shared in this video? What does it mean for aviation? Will the manufacturing problems that have been plaguing Boeing and the issues around engines, are they going to continue to last? What does that look like in the new year? Well, Boeing on September 13th, 2024, more than 33,000 machinists at aircraft maker Boeing went on strike, and this is the first strike by the union since 2008. The majority of striking workers are located in Seattle at the company's plants in Everett and Renton, which is where they're making their 737s. Airbus, as I mentioned earlier, hundreds of planes parked due to problems with Pratt & Whitney engines, and the inspections can only be done so quickly. So this leaves tea leaves and seashells to suggest to us that some of the larger carriers have already alluded to massive hiring numbers next year, but for every tea leaf forecast, there is also a naysayer. So we don't really know for sure, but what I can tell you is that United launched their largest winter schedule ever, with a focus on Africa, Southern Europe, and Latin America, plus ski and sunshine destinations across the US. They will operate nearly 4,600 flights per day. My God, that's a lot of flights during the peak winter season, adding flights at more than 140 US airports and inaugurating service to 4 new international destinations. United expects its busiest ever winter season with growing international demand. And finally, United's winter schedule officially launches on October 24th, which is obviously in the past, with the addition of nonstop service to Morocco. So now let's talk about the pilot shortage that we hear so much about. So in its 2024 to 2044 aerospace forecast, the FAA cites the airline pilot shortage as an ongoing issue and one that is likely to persist. Boeing pilot Technician Outlook projects that 123,000 pilots are needed in North America from now until 2043. The major contributing factors fueling this shortage include airline pilot retirements versus pilots training to replace them, and increased demand for air travel with record numbers of passengers. There's a consulting firm by the name of Oliver Wyman, and they said that demand for pilots sparked an increase in pay and quality of life, with salaries increasing as much as 86%. They estimate the pilot shortage to continue well into the decade, with a shortfall of 17,000 pilots in 2032. The largest gap between supply and demand is estimated to occur in 2026, with a shortfall of 2,400 pilots. So if you think about that, once Boeing and Pratt & Whitney resolve their manufacturing and quality control issues, there is very likely going to be quite a surge in pilot hiring, because they haven't been hiring now. And despite that, the pilots on their current payroll continue to get older, continue to hit the age of 65, and continue to retire. So that has to get caught back up again. So 2025 and ideally 2026 probably are going to be very, very strong years for pilot hiring. So now let's have a look at retirements. So as you can see on the chart here, retirements have been steadily increasing. Airline pilots are required, as we know, to retire at 65, and an aging workforce approaching this mandatory retirement age is creating a shortage of airline pilots. According to estimates compiled by the National Air Carrier Association, there will be 16,000 plus retirements over the next 5 years and a cumulative shortage of 28,126 pilots by the year 2030. So if this is the case, 2025 should be another banner year for hiring pilots, right up there with 2022 and 2023. For example, American Airlines has started to hire again after a hiring freeze that lasted 7 months, and they are set to have their next class on January 8th of 2025. All right, so let's wrap up this hiring update with the following. Mandatory retirement numbers continue to climb, and flight training schools and colleges are bursting at the seams with future pilots and aspiring aviators. If the major airline poach chain hiring engines start to churn again, the regional and private aviation vacancies left in their wake will have to be replaced with new talent. This is the recipe for a great year of pilot hiring and a busy year of traveling for talent acquisition managers and senior recruiting pilots. So was there something I missed? Are you an industry insider? Do you work for an airline? Do you have something that you would like to add to this report? Please do so by leaving your thoughts and your comments down in the comments below so that the entire community can benefit. So thanks very much, everybody, for watching another one of my hiring updates. If you enjoyed this video, please do hit that like button. If this is your first time watching a video on my channel and you'd like to see more videos, please subscribe and click that little bell. And if you would like to receive an email notification every time I produce another long form video like this, head on over to flywithtrent.com and become an email subscriber. Thanks very much, everybody. Take care. We'll see you in the next video soon. Bye-bye.